Well, welcome, Jordan Gibson,
Thank you, bro.
Fleecy G
Fleecy G.
of Chicks Downtown,
Yeah.
and Yummy Boys.
I wondered if that would come up. I guess we're going to get into that.
Well, it is your new vibe right now.
Yeah.
No, let's start with that, bro.
Okay.
It's crack up. Well, do you know what? Because I find it really funny because, well, I can't eat crap, bro. I'm gluten free. So when I see you boys doing that, I'm like, I hope they don't invite me because I can't eat anything. Because you guys are always eating like battered fish.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I'll shop, bro.
All good. For this month, I'm trying not to eat any refined sugar or fried food unless it's a Yummy Boys recording because it's just not going to happen.
So you guys are getting heaps of clips now.
Yeah, totally.
Boys, let's film Tuesday.
Or the clean eats, poke bowl.
Yeah. Well, what was the buzz around that? It seems like quite a natural, organic little...
Exactly that, bro. Like completely organic. Just like started through friendship, really. So I, became friends with Vinny like earlier in the year, and it was just randomly like, oh, hey, bro, do you want to do a food review?
Yeah.
And we did a couple, and then somehow around that time I befriended Harrison as well, and then he just started kind of chiming in or something, dropping a comment, and I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. Like, I see what angle you're playing.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, hey, bro, like, do you want to come on?
Yeah.
And then we did one episode, and he coined the Yummy Boys. So that was Harrison's contribution.
He's got like such an enigma character. So like he's such an animated kind of guy. Like his voice and everything.
Oh man,
Perfect
he's
actor.
so much fun to be around. Like we have so much fun doing those recordings. That's probably the biggest takeaway. Like it's such a fun, weird, random little addition to my life.
Yeah.
As this like fashion designer.
Yeah.
We're talking about a food review series that I do with two buddies. That's just kind of started developing momentum in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
But yeah, Harrison's so much fun. Vinny's hilarious too. And we just spend a couple of hours together. It's become kind of horsing around.
It looks like you've upgraded the gear a little bit. Are you guys getting mics and a couple of cameras and full scale production?
There's mics now, which was also Harrison's investment. But Joe Damon said to us, like, keep it as lo-fi as you can.
Yeah, nice shot, Joe.
Because it's just going to make it so much. I guess he was coming from like mobile, easy to do, not creating any extra.
Yeah,
we're all busy guys, which is the challenge of it.
Like looking at this, I'm like, okay, 2 cameras. I borrowed that one off Joey. That's our one.
Yeah.
The lights, we don't have lights.
Right, yeah.
I was like, if I'm going to do it, it needs to be easy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I just finished my te reo lesson and something else, and I'm jumping into this, and it's like, if it takes me half a day to do it, I won't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, definitely. I get you, bro.
It's kind of, even that's a really cool point around content. It's like, if you add in all these layers, you don't do it.
Exactly.
And so much of it's like repetition, Just get the reps up. Like, this is the second potty. I'm like working out little bits and pieces of the whole system,
Yeah, I mean, even the Yummy Boys thing is an example. Like, it's taken other people being like, hey, you guys have probably got something here. A few times for us to be like, oh, we should probably take this a bit more seriously. We were doing like, I don't know, maybe like 1 upload a month or something like that. Yeah. And then we started getting like PR inquiries.
Really?
Like big
free
time.
feeds for sure, right?
Not yet. It's still self-funded. So that's the first goal.
You paid for those at the end.
We're paying for those meals, bro.
Oh, bro.
But I would say we're trashing some of these places, right? Yeah. And if you're getting free meals, how does that influence? The tone of it is kind of like I think I said places that other people wouldn't review.
Yeah.
Which means you're gonna.
Right, so that's kind of the criteria. You're going, hey, let's go to a place. Because did you do one at Swashbucklers?
Yes. Yeah, I think that was the first one that I did with Vinny. And I was like, hey, would it be funny if we did it at Swashies? And he was like, bro, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then we went to like Costco.
Man, if you guys go on tour, you need to Wellington, you need to do the Fisherman's Table.
Okay.
Oriental Bay, it's got the beach, and then there's like that weird round building that's like on the water. It's like it's very art.
Yeah, is it a Swashies kind of energy?
100%.
Yes,
It's like,
love that.
It's like Krabby Patty sort of look like, yeah, I think it's got a salad bar sort of shit, you know?
I just love those kind of places that are just like utterly authentic. You know what I mean? There's no pretension to it. I love high-low in general.
Yeah.
You know, and like kitsch and something a bit more like refined rubbing together. This is sort of getting into like Czech's DNA and language as well. But I love that. You know, a little bit bogan. I'm into it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, explain that to me, because sometimes if you're coming up with like often who you are is defined by who you don't want to be. Do you know what I mean? And you're saying, oh, a little bit bogan's nice and I like that too. But is that because you don't want to be pretentious preppy? Or, maybe. Maybe.
I'm not sure if it's thought through in that way. Like, I think it's probably relatively, again, coming from a place of authenticity.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the South Island. I grew up in Christchurch.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess those bogan roots are like, they're ingrained. I can't get out of the boy races on a Friday night, you know. It's always going to be there, and played lots of rugby and things growing up. But I love like leopard print and trucker caps and camo and things like that. I just like it, you know. Color orange, like it's pretty fucking bold.
Yeah, viz.
So
high viz.
Yeah, but then you know my first professional job was working for Crane Brothers, you know, selling suits, and I did that for 6 years. Which is very, you know, prim, proper, wearing a suit every day, but very, very detail obsessed.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking luxury fabric and manufacturing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, getting into Czechs, I kind of wanted to, it's like a mix of those things. I wanted it to be able to be both at once.
Yeah.
And a bit eclectic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, I'll take us back to the start. No, that's good though. Good warm up.
Yeah.
Yummy boys. So tell me, like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What were you like as a kid? And and then getting into your early 20s. But give me that background, because I like building that foundation.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up in Otatahi. I was there for 17 years, and I was always really creative, and through intermediate and high school, I was really sports obsessed. Childhood divorce, growing up with a single mum, I just then leapt into stuff that was really masculine. Which is quite interesting.
Yeah, to get to satiate that.
But at that age, it's not thought out, you know? It's just...
No, it's
and
it's fine, it's healthy.
But all the while I was obsessed with gear, you know, and...
Pause. Sorry.
Not that kind of gear, Harry.
Gear, like rugby boots.
Yeah, like anything I was into. I was really into like the clothing, like skateboarding, you know, rugby, basketball. I love playing sports, but I was always really into the gear, you know, product. And I think that was because at that age and that time, I just didn't know that you could do something in fashion.
Right.
You know, it took me, I think times are very different now.
Right.
But it took me really until moving to Auckland to find out that was a possibility.
Yeah.
So I was doing all these other things that were kind of as closely linked to fashion or being creative as I could. If there was sort of heavy sport phase, and I really loved that throughout high school. But, you know, by year 13, I think I was doing 4 or 5 art subjects plus English.
Oh, you know, that's so cool.
It was amazing that they let me. You know, I went to Christ College in Christchurch, pretty prestigious school.
Yeah.
That was just just so drawn to things that were creative.
So you like, the cool thing is you were encouraged. I think I know from my point of view, it was like I was very rugby obsessed, rugby family as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do drama, I wanted to do design, but I was sort of made to do the maths, accounting, shit like that. So I've only got into my creativity in my late 20s.
Yeah.
Which is so strange, but I love hearing guys even Niwa Whatuira, he's an actor, and he sort of had to fight a lot to do acting, you know, and go against what his family and shit were like. Nah, I'm not acting. And he's like, no, I want to be an actor. As a tough, you know, really masculine man.
Yeah.
So then, what did you do after high school, and how did So you went straight into Crane Brothers, or yeah?
Nah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I think I reached the end of high school, like I said, I was fashion obsessed, but you know, unfortunately, in that environment, people around me, it's not something you could do for a career. You know, it's just not really any opportunities. In a way, they're not wrong. But I was, you know, doing a lot of fine art subjects, and you know, my painting teacher at high school at the time was like, oh, you know, you kind of got something here. The best school to go to would be Elam in Auckland. You should see if you can get in. And I did a late entry, you know, I don't know, November or December, applied and got on the wait list, and then got let in, and I think I needed to be in Auckland February, March or something like
and
that.
You're like 18?
17. Finished school young. So yeah, moved up here, moved in with like a family friend, was going to Elam, but was making lots of friends and having a good time, you know, but putting in basically bare minimum.
Right.
And at the time there was a cool store, like a streetwear sneaker boutique in Newmarket, and I would just there every weekend, you know, and then, I don't know, maybe I saw something on their website or whatever, you know, saying that they were looking for an employee, got a job there. And that was such a nurturing environment because I was surrounded by these people that were into the same stuff as me, you know, limited edition sneakers, Japanese streetwear, and was suddenly in this environment that could nurture that, you know. So that was really like my education, or the first level. And so I was like, oh man, I'm putting in bare minimum effort at Elam doing fine arts. Eventually I was like, probably need to try something else. Dropped out. I think I worked full time for a bit. And then the boss at the time was like, oh, you're pretty into this fashion stuff. Like, have you thought about studying it?
Yeah.
And then so I went and did some studies for a couple of years before getting the first full-time job.
So you went and studied fashion then?
Yeah.
But all of that Elam stuff's not wasted. Like, I think, and like you're saying, all the range of creativity that you do at school. Like, I one thing that I wanted to mention, like, even with sports, there's creativity in sports, but I don't think people realise that. Like, the way that you, like rugby, for example, I can speak on that, the way that you take your line or the way that you pass, like, people put the different flair, different everything in everything they do. Like, it's actually a creative, expressive environment.
Absolutely.
It's just not what you would typically think of as being creative expression.
No, you're right, bro, for
you know?
sure. Like, you think about like Benji Marshall or something that, right? Like the amount of flair.
The movement, it's dancey, and that's, I think, what is really healthy for kids, is being able to, like, if you don't have the sort of artistic side, being able to express in that sports environment is quite cool, you know? Like stees in the way in which you run or step or pass, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
And then I think now it's changed so much, you know, in the past. I guess since I started checks, really, you know, not to say that was the marcation point by any means, but, you know, the fashion is such a big part of all these, you know, personal identities, personal brand, you know, whether it started, I think, really with basketball, right, and the NBA and tunnel fits and things. But then that's spread out to almost every sport now, it seems, right, where some of them are taking the fashion a lot more seriously. So I think probably, I would imagine, at a younger age, if you're in high school and you're really sports obsessed and you're seeing some of the blues guys getting fits off, and you know, it's probably becoming more a part of the identity from that stage too.
Was it you I was talking to about this? But apparently, like, it's a little tricky for some sports and some tournaments because of the sponsorship. So I mean, ideally you wear whatever you like in that walkthrough. But if you're sponsored by Reebok, you can't be seen in other stuff or whatever. So apparently, like, when the Blues do it, you can only get the guys that aren't wearing stuff that is competitive or something.
Right.
So you
that makes
imagine
sense.
how many more there would be. Like, so they're even doing a pretty good job now.
Yeah.
But imagine if they could, I don't know, that sponsorship thing didn't block it. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah. So staying on that timeline, studied fashion, and then career. What was your first job after that? Or tell me about Crane Brothers. That's a really cool. I mean, 6 years in any job is epic, and
totally.
And that sort of level of fashion, you must have learned a lot to take.
Yeah. Similar thing. I guess that's a bit of a through line in my history. I just started showing up there. It's pretty nuts considering I guess I was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
But I think online globally there was an interest in traditional menswear and suiting and things at that time, you know.
Barbering was kind of coming out. Remember, because barbershops are only like
guys used to go to hairdressers, bro.
Yeah,
right?
but hard out. But that sort of old school approach, maybe it was sort of in that time.
Totally,
right?
yeah, that's all.
And
linked,
brewing beer with big beards, like
yeah, the lumberjack kind of. All of that was bubbling around.
That was an era,
time.
bro. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just started going in there, and then I met the boss, met Murray Crane, once or twice, and then I think he just took some interest in me, and I probably talked about what I was studying, and then eventually got offered a job. Sort of hummed and hard on whether to go for it, and then I did, and started working there. And it's like from the bottom. It's funny you bring up barbering. Like you kind of work in like an apprenticeship type way.
Right.
There. Like if you at the beginning you're making cups of tea for the director, or putting suits away after other people have conducted fittings, and then maybe you progress to a level where you could start selling.
You're like shadowing.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's how you learn.
Sick. That's how
I'm a visual learner, bro, so it's great for me, and I really thrived in that way. And then eventually I worked my way, and they had other brands that they operated, and got into like a creative director kind of position, and sort of I think went as far as I could under someone else.
Yeah. But on that note though, like, as an employer, and if you had someone come around to your shop, that was like there every weekend, keen as. All right, how could you not hire that person? Like if someone approaches me and they're kind of keen and they sort of hanging around a bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, if you that's who we want to work for us.
Totally.
I'd rather that than have to go out and search and find find people. And then it's not really, the fact that they hired you, I was like, yeah, bro, you're the perfect hire.
No,
someone
the
that
person
wants
you're
to work
really
there.
familiar with has obviously got a leg up, when you start hiring compared to just receiving a CV in your inbox, and you can, they're already keen as a bee, and they know a bit about the company and the brand. Yeah.
So checks. So there's a bit of a leap here. How did that start? How did it start? Because it didn't start as just your own brand, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so origin story, I guess I got to a stage where I wanted more control and something that felt more mine, and expression of my tastes and things.
Yeah.
And things kind of came together to start a business. And so, at some point I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. Start this thing from scratch, figure out the name and all these sorts of things. But yeah, when we first opened, again, I think going back that far, it's quite a different climate in terms of local industry, also globally, which we can delve into. But when we first opened, the store was called Cheeks Downtown, but we also carried other international brands. And I think, again, marker of the time, also, it's probably a process of me building up my confidence.
Right.
That I could start a brand and that be flagship brand and what the focus of the entire business is. And then through, performance of the product and people really showing that they were interested in my voice and, and then some, people suggesting, maybe you should just focus on your own brand. We made that sort of transition perhaps a year and a half or so into flagship brand.
Wow.
All, our own product. And another part of that is the margin aspect, which we were touching on off camera as well.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, I think that that was probably a good segue, because you couldn't have just started with a whole range, 4 seasons deep, so having those other brands in there for a purely shopping experience.
Yeah, totally.
It would have just been like an art gallery, at the start, maybe. It probably would have forced you to rush maybe some products through, but knowing you're like, oh, I don't have to fill that space or that space or that space, probably like a really nice, I think a really nice segue for the first 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, for right or wrong, I love physical retail. I love in-store experiences. Yes. So from the beginning, we had retail, and to your point, needed a relatively broad product the jump. And so I guess it did allow us time to kind of flesh out our in-house range.
So what year was this? And were you doing anything online at that stage? Like, you're talking about the environment being different at that time. Like, let's dive into that. Like,
2017 we started, and it was physical retail only first.
It's crazy to think of now.
It's wild, eh?
It's the complete opposite.
To be honest, bro, I remember it was a real bit of an arm twist with some of the directors, board members to be like, hey, I think we should really develop a website.
No way.
Yes, bro. It's wild to think of now, eh? Considering like the share of the business and revenue at this level. So I think in year one we created like an e-com site.
Wow, that's crazy though. Yeah, but I mean, I think a brand steeped in true experience is fantastic, because I often use, like, with clients where you're talking about certain aspects online, I'll say, well, imagine a retail store like this, and you use that as the example, the experience, because that it's just, people think digital world is different. It's not. It's just that. It's retail in another form.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know, I like putting clothes by collection or putting them by a category. I'm a fan for putting them by a category, like you have your tees with your tees and things like that, because often the consumer's coming in with an idea of what they want to buy, I think artistically and brand-wise, it's cool to put things as a collection, and you're like VIPs and you're like real hardcore people who love you. They will like come in for that. But yeah, I don't know. That's just one thing that I think of. Like, some brands are only online, so they only kind of think about buttons and rounded edges on a button rather than like full experience. And now I think we're definitely going towards experience. Like, what are you thinking, seeing all of these brands around the world going full investing into retail stores, amazing speakers, big fit outs, parties, DJ or coffee and DJ mornings, like, that must be cool for you because you're like, yeah, cool, I got the retail store, I've always been into this, okay, this is gonna, like, competition in terms of, like, there might not be your competition, but like trying to outdo people in that space. It's gonna be cool for you because you're like, all right, cool, like, people have got a taste for it, or they want a cool in-store experience.
Yeah, I think it's really good to see from my perspective, being so firm on the role of physical retail and seeing brands really invest in that environment. And I think it's obviously it's a sales channel, firstly, but it's a very kind of validating experience, ideally, if done really well.
Yeah.
We can kind of step into that world and absorb it, and what are you get so many more touch points, right, in a physical experience compared to online, where it's really pictures a product on a website and it's just about how well does it convert. Yeah.
That's the till. And there's all that other space, all that other journey before the till.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Whereas in person, you can have amazing salespeople, you can have a beautiful fit out, you can have maybe a coffee offering, and with this new store that we opened in Newmarket in November, it's just really specific about all of those details. The staff as well, one of these sort of like ambassadors, because they play such an important part in that customer journey. It's the first person you speak to when you're sort of entering this brand environment. And then, all the little details and touches to build up a unique experience. But yeah, I think it's great to see, and I guess it reaffirms that physical retail is not going anywhere, but
but it can't just be a shop. You know what I mean? Like, it's a clubhouse in a sense, eh? Like, it takes a lot of effort to run events, community stuff, like with people around. But like, I think that's like, it's a headquarters now. I think that's kind of what people are trying to turn them into. Yeah. I've always looked at like fashion as, well, I think it is now, for me in my mind, the garments are just a vehicle for me to demonstrate my sort of connection with this brand or this movement or this way of thinking, this way of dressing. And so the whole retail experience is just a part of that communicating your philosophy or who you are or how your identity, Actually, I had a question on that, and I wanted to talk to you about identity because I suppose it's something we're both, like, you played a lot of sport and now we're into fashion world, and I don't have a fashion brand but work with lots of fashion brands. I'd say personally for me, I took till my late 20s to fully, I don't know, express myself, right? And I always felt like I had to sort of stay within the bounds of a masculine man. I always wanted to get my ears pierced, but I only got it done like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I had a bit of an awakening. That was sort of like the trigger point.
Yeah.
You know, I painted my nails that winter, you know. I haven't really painted now like you for the camera. But you know, and I was like, wow, this feels good. And I felt really who I was. And I used to and then I got a mullet. You know, there were a few things. Whereas before that, I felt like I had to fit in this groove. Also did some modelling stuff for quite classic brands, like Barkers and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, if I get a mullet, they won't really want me. And then I just threw it all out. I was like, nah, man, I want to be who I am, you know? And so I wanted to ask you, if you share any of the same things, because I know you're in the fashion world. And sometimes it feels like you kind of have to be a certain thing. But, you know, we went to a rugby game the other day, which typically back in the day we'd be like, no, rugby's not fashion, man. Like, we sit on the walls like this, you know? But you do CrossFit as well. And so we're both 30 in our 30s now, so, you know, I think that's when we just don't give a fuck, you know. But did you ever have to grapple with that, like I was saying I did, or?
Yeah, I think so, bro. The identity stuff. I think there was a stage in high school where I was just like, oh, fuck, I don't really feel like I kind of fit in here anymore in terms of all my interests and things. It was just diverging from what the mass crowd was into, which is basically partying, booze, drugs, and girls, which is like cool. But, you know, I was like, oh, just like really into fashion and creativity and just didn't know how to express. And I think it's just been a real journey ever since to come to an understanding that it's okay to be into all of that stuff that we talked about. And now I reach a point where I'm like, that's fucking awesome, you know? And I, like we were talking about earlier with brand, just really like being really eclectic and sort of showing that I can be into all these different things and find a way to, I guess, bring harmony to them. But even more recently, I guess this is getting into proper personal stuff, but I had, you know, breakup of a really long-term relationship start of last year. And I found since then, it was just like, authenticity has been my North Star, you know, personally, through, you know, my own self-expression, but also through the business and brand, socially as well, like making friends. Yeah, I know, I feel that. You don't feel like you're ever putting on a front. Exactly, bro. You know, that's the goal. So, and I just love self-expression as well. So always exploring new things to kind of, I don't know, fit with my identity or try something different. Or I also like getting reactions. Like, I think that's fun. You know, like getting a little rise out of someone, or someone be like, I wouldn't really expect that from someone like you or whatever, you know? So having these multitudes, I think, is really cool rather than fitting in like a neat box. Yeah, because strip it all away, we're just kind of pretty normal looking Pākehā males. Yeah, totally. So I've always found like a little bit, it's like, okay, I'm going to jazz this up a bit. Like, I sort of joke relatively often about trying my hardest to be like the zestiest white boy. Bro, I struggle with it too. I'm like, I want to dye my hair, but I'm like, is that going too far for this straight, like normal Pākehā male? Like, pretty funny. That's interesting to hear about identity. And I think I love that point you said. It's okay to be into all of this. And I think I've struggled with that. I mean, like, I don't know, I don't know what it is, bro. You think it's confusing. Oh, man. But then it's like, I'm not allowed. No, because I'm this guy, I'm not allowed. It's so stupid. Totally. It's like, but why? But it's self-talk. And yeah, it's funny. You have your, like, you know, as a kid, you're coming up, and 25, I feel like you kind of start looking at the world kind of a bit differently. Right? And you're like, okay, oh wow, I've been institutionalized in a positive way or whatever. You start looking at it. And then I think it happens again at 30, but then you look even further back. You're like, oh, why am I
try this way, and you wake up again. You're like, oh, express myself differently.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that as well, and in some level, like, that sort of self-doubt of perhaps if I rounded off some of the corners and made things all a bit neater and easier for people to digest, perhaps I'd be, I don't know, more successful, or whatever kind of metric you're looking for in whatever way. But we just had like a meeting with designer that I'm working with yesterday, and he's pretty new to it, but just asking really interesting questions, and was sort of saying, I was talking about the balance of playfulness and slickness, and that's really like the crux of Checks and the brand identity.
Yeah, because it is play.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And his perspective was kind of like, I think it can be, everything all at once. Like sometimes you might want to lean really hard in the playful direction, and sometimes you might want to go really, really slick. So yeah, it was cool to, sometimes you need an outside voice to kind of like help you look at things slightly differently and be like, no, that's part of who we are.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's really interesting. You say it's play, but also the slickness. And now I'm thinking of some of the pieces, and it's like, orange really helps you become play.
Totally.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But you always use it in like, well, not always, but in my head, there's like, just it's like a bounce of play somewhere on the garment, or there's something that's quite different. And you're like, oh wow, that's interesting take, or interesting cut, or seam, or whatever, So now that you say that, I see it. Yeah, that's cool. So coming back to Checks and sort of running a business, what was that sort of? Often a lot of brands have that one garment or whatever that was like, oh, I got something here. It's sold a lot quicker, and I've restocked it, or whatever. Okay, I think there's something here. But what was that for you? Did you have one of those?
There's been so many stages. It's been like 8 years.
Oh, let's run the stages.
Yeah, okay. I think early on, like when we caught up last, you were talking to me about the orange hoodie. I think that was sort of early kind of hit, and you were like, why aren't you still doing that? And I think that's probably one of the things I'm sort of guilty of, is like always moving on.
Right.
Now I'm trying to really focus on like amplifying hits. So it was that, and then we had, like Kawa camo pants. It was like an original camo pattern in that Realtree style. I hadn't really seen anyone do that, create a new pattern that had like a native, origin or tie-in. Had sort of mohair cardigans. That was a bit of a era, I suppose. Most recently, it would definitely be like Hakama pants, Hakama shorts.
Right.
And probably a bit more of a focus around silhouette, because I wanted, there's this playful, part of the DNA, and I think through the early middle stage of the brand up till now, that really manifested in these real statement items.
Yes.
That's what we were known for.
Yeah.
It was really good for garnering attention, having maybe like hit sellout items. But I reached a stage where I was like, I want people to start thinking about the possibility of a full outfit from Checks.
Yeah.
Rather than, I'll go there for one piece and then I'll pair it with whatever else.
Yeah, no, you're right. They are a little, not all of them, but yeah, sometimes like that. Yeah, like this will be my loud piece, and I'll tone the rest down.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that sort of, I guess, pushed me, or natural leaning to focus more on silhouette and shape. So these Hakama shorts, I don't think I thought too much of it at the time. I just wanted to create this sort of Japanese influence, very deep pleated silhouette in a short and a pant. And I guess tested the waters, and they turned out to be a hit, and just something we've kind of typically struggled to keep in stock.
Epic.
Yeah, which is cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's funny, we have talked about it before. It's like, if you have a hit, sometimes it's like, to keep the value of the brand, I can't make that again. But personally, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think you have there's always that spectrum, like your innovators, early adopters, and then more mass market. And like these guys are very quick to buy that stuff, slightly slower, but still quick. Yeah. And these guys are going to be well behind them, 6 months, maybe a year after. But hey, they want to express their love for you, for the brand.
Yeah.
And they're never going to be up on those major ones, or maybe after like 3 years of being with the brand and you've got to take them up to the cool shit. But if you don't remake it, you actually are closing the door on people at the club. No, but you know what I mean? Like totally. That's how I look at it. I'm like, oh, well, look, we need to actually give you access. Maybe price range is a little bit cheaper, like, because basically the orange hoodie, well, I love the black one with the orange outline, but I bought the full orange one because I was trying to be loud.
Right.
And then I went, oh man, I actually wish I got the more subtle one. Yep. You know, and anyway. But that's like your merch line, right? So for me, that sits here as like merch line is like nice gateway, cool. Those people who aren't ready to go full kawa camo yet, but like paving stone in, and like they're still cool, you know. But so, yeah. Anyway, that's my take on that stuff. You know,
no, you're totally right. It's just interesting to watch that customer journey, and sometimes I don't know, maybe through a friend, someone that's a friend, and might get a little insight into that. You know, I recall a friend recently, and he's been talking to me about having a little makeover for a while, a style makeover. Cool, let's do it, bro. I love doing that. You know, I love when people come to me with something like that. Be really supportive. But he tried on the Karma shorts the other day. He's like, bro, like I love them, but I just feel like I'm not ready yet, kind of thing.
Because they're here, or here,
Totally. And like if I think about silhouettes tends to wear on the bottom, they're probably relatively slim still. And so then making a leap into this big, long short, it is a pretty drastic step.
Yeah.
You know, whereas your early adopters, they're ready for that. Like
Rip, so. Like how much fabric do you think we're going to keep adding to these pants?
Totally.
Right, these parachutes are crazy, man.
Helena was telling me about a funny, I think it was a TikTok or something like that, about maybe the girlfriend getting the boyfriend some shorts, but they're like, you know how the jorts are getting so long, like they're like down to the shin. There's a comment like, are the shorts in the room with us?
Yeah.
It's so accurate. Like every season I'm like, to the production manager, can we like add 5 centimeters? Is that all right?
Bro, I don't know where it's going. It's like that kid eating the blueberries in Willy Wonka and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, shit, how big are they? And they don't stop. I don't know, but I'm here for it. I love it because baggy, because you used to skate as well. And that was my first awakening with fashion as well, as I think with anyone who skates, skate fashion is what you get into first.
Yeah. And
you get into allegiance, you get into tribalism, you get into all these things, you have your crew, like it's such a first thing for most kids. And we always we could never really like afford the sick clothes. I don't know, Wellington was so hard. You had fusion, but I feel like you could never really get, you weren't that clued up on actually where to source the cool shit that the older guys were wearing.
Yeah.
Ryan McLeod, he would always be wearing like cool shit, and his whole crew, Jesse Aberlins and stuff. They were probably like 16. For me, they seemed like 30 at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're only a few years older than me.
Yeah.
But they had baggy, and I remember, I was like, shit, that baggy's cool. And then it went quite quickly really skinny.
Yeah.
JJ's $50 jeans, we used to rip them like crazy. Jack Fagan, I remember he just ripped them all the time. And then we've gone back to that. So what is that? 20 years ago? Oh no, almost 15.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm 30. That was about. Oh no, I was about 10. So it's about 20 years ago, and we're back. We've been in the baggy for a bit now, but I wonder, is it going to go? Will we ever be back in tight skinny jeans?
I mean, I like to think no, because I personally want my clothes bigger and bigger all the time. It feels like I'd like to think no, but probably yes. But I think we've reached a different era in style and trends through the globalization and commoditization of fashion and personal style, where it's now there's no dominant trends. Like, okay, baggy, yes, that's a pretty dominant, like broad trend, but there's just so many micro trends existing all at once, and not in regional pockets. You probably do still have some regional style, but if guys online or guys and girls that, I don't know, I think of that like Vamp Life, like Playboy Cardi, you know, talking about skinnies and things. And people, but there's some people in Auckland, there's people in New York, you know, it's all over the place, but then you've got total extremes of style. So I don't know, it's hard to kind of imagine that happening on a mass level, but
yeah, we might just move into cloaks, bro. Like, just adopting, like, we'll just go further up the steps of Japanese style and just, like, we'll just go full cloak. Like, yeah, but that's interesting. Like, the global style thing is really interesting, eh? Like, quite quickly, we all, if you have a fashion eye, in the fashion scene, I kind of don't like that word, but if you're into it, we probably all follow quite similar people around the world, which is kind of crazy. Like, I follow this guy in New York, and like I just go, wow, whatever he's wearing, I want to try and replicate that.
Yeah.
You know, like no one had that 10 years ago. You'd have magazines, and you could look at like how people are dressing there, but there's a mad delay. You know, but what's your take on the global fashion? I don't know. It's like tight and woven together, right? You said no regional pockets. That's a really nice term. Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, I'm sure there still is, which would be really cool to explore. But yeah, I think there's good and bad to most things, right? I think the good of it, I think maybe the average level of style across the board is higher.
Yeah.
You know, like even locally, I think the amount of guys that now their fashion and the way they're dressing, they're considering a kind of a pretty critical part of their identity is so much higher than it was even 8 years ago when
especially
Czech
in New
started.
Zealand. Yeah.
Definitely, man. And so mostly I think that's good, you know, democratizing fashion, making it more accessible, you know, particularly through social media, online shopping, globalization. But I like, you know, like keep going back to being a bit eclectic. I like that sort of regional style and discovery. You know, we're talking about being a young skateboarder and seeing someone wearing something, you're like, what is that? Where do I get that? But he's a god to me. I couldn't possibly ask him.
I never asked.
You never would, right? You're a young grommy, so shy.
Well, they never made it in your size. You weren't old enough to fit the pants, brother.
Yeah.
You couldn't fit these.
You're 11 years old wearing a size 34.
Yeah. But now, kids are fly as.
Totally.
Like, far out. They know where to find it. And they're dressing way cooler than we did.
Yeah. There's
It was Planet 8, bro. Shout outs, but.
Yeah, I mean, I just spent all my money on clothes, you know, through high school, university, and just seeked out whatever was the coolest stuff I could kind of access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I when I was going through uni and a bit afterwards, just like didn't have much money, but I wanted to look good. And I just went, and this is such an easy one, but I reckon it's such a cool look. But it's just like Dickies with the tucked in tee, like very tattoo artist, very LA style. And all you need is like 2 pairs of Dickies and any tee, and then you look pretty. In my mind, and a bit of like Brill cream. In my mind, they're the coolest looking fuckers, bro. I love that look. I'll always like that look. And you know, I love it's not going anywhere.
Nah, bro.
That's really like, it's like a trade. It's a trade. Or it's you know, like it's yeah. So I can always fall back on that one. You know what I mean? Like it's almost a chino, but they can get a bit baggier. You can go for the baggy Dickies, but that tuck in, slick hair, tucked in t-shirt. Cool belt, cool shoes. I mean, you know, you could run Vans, you could run Chucks. American style shoe is kind of what I'm into, but you could do Docs too if you want to dress it up, you know.
Yeah, I love things like that are those icons of fashion that they are what they are because they are hyper accessible as well, you know, and will always be stylish and never let you down. And Dickies are great because there's all the different cuts and things, but then you can wear them in different ways. You can cuff them, you can cut them off, you can, you know, personalise them as well.
Yeah, and that's actually probably what those boys were wearing back at the skate park was Dickies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was slightly hard to get back in the day.
It was.
Yeah, I just want to get into the nitty gritty of tough stuff. I'd say for us, to give you context, like the last 12 months have been so hard, like having to innovate, you know, the whole market's shifted. But, yeah, it's really tough, but here we are. Cool, we're doing a podcast, I get to talk to you. Like, I'm so grateful for that, because otherwise this wouldn't have happened, you know? Right. And we've done some online stuff, and we'll kick through eventually, but, I mean, you've had since 2017, what's sort of some of the toughest things that you went through, but have ultimately shaped you, like you needed?
Man, I think it's the whole journey, like that length of time. And just, I was thinking about that coming into it. It's all the things that you don't know. That's kind of been the toughest learning curve.
Right.
Starting a business, I think had a good sense of building a brand and what I liked.
Yeah.
And how to maybe build something that would resonate. Had some good ideas about that and a good sense for style and product. I'd worked in creative direction, manufacturing previously, so I had a bit of know-how around that, but that was all local industry. And then partway through, we're like, we need to offshore our production in order to be able to grow and head towards profitability.
It's impossible to not to. You can't really make clothes in New Zealand and profit.
Unfortunately not. And particularly if you're selling to a male consumer.
Yeah, right.
Their price expectations. Just all those learning curves along the way, and I think probably just a very gradual process of refining the business model itself. You've been through all these different iterations and stages, maybe being more wholesale focused for a period of time and working with big, American department stores and European big online e-commerce stores, and going to Paris and doing showing and thinking, this is going to be the future of the business, or like this is the silver bullet kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's always sort of clutching onto something external, some opportunity that's going to change everything or whatever. And then finally maybe reaching a stage where it's kind of like, actually just need to focus really internally. Yeah. Might not be as pretty in a way. It's always nice to be able to say, I'm going to Paris in June or whatever. But that's the most important thing. And I think we've reached what that is, what our primary sales channels, how to grow them, what's most important in the product assortment.
Yeah, I think as a business owner, I think I've got less of it now, but there's that thing in your mind, like, if I work hard or if I get this right, the rest will be taken care of. Like if I just hit that gold, man, I'm sitting pretty, like, and I think like there's an allure when you're going to Paris or things like that. They're like, yeah, man, if I strike gold, it's going to change the business. We're all good. But I think as you realise, like, nah, man, you got to work hard in like every area. Nothing's really given to you on a plate at all, eh?
Yeah, and the reality is that all of those things are a much harder, longer slog typically than you realise. If you're going and doing international sales in Paris, unless you've got a lot of hype and momentum behind you, which usually comes probably from some sort of celebrity or having your own personal following to leverage into it, you're going to have to show up season after season after season to grow traction with these buyers and stores, and one picks you up, it sells well there, all of that, which coming from New Zealand and going to, it's just very fucking expensive, right? Just to get yourself there, then you got showroom costs and da.
But even like, I mean, I think I've never been with clients that go over, and I think from my point of view, the fashion world is cliquey, right? It totally is. It's if you want to be in it, you got to show up to everything, right? And I think you can't kind of go into Paris and play a good game of golf and then you got it. You know what I mean? Like culturally, you have to be accepted by that global fashion crew. This is how I imagine it. So people aren't going to just pull you in first year unless you're one of those anomalies where you're like young, you're doing something amazing, and everyone adopts you.
Totally.
But that's like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It does, but very rarely. But I feel like, if you were a big buyer, you want to know that these people actually live and breathe this, and they're showing up every year for 5 years. I might as well give them a shot. It's relationship building. I think when I first started as well, it was a little bit transactional. And when you're young, you just want to do the work. And you're like, right, let's get into it, And now I'm much more focused on the relationship. I can't be bothered working with someone who's going to pay me a lot but ruin my day. You know what I mean? It just kills my soul. Yeah. So we've just started with a new client, and we sort of courted for weeks and weeks, hang out for hours on end before we just signed the contract last week. and I'm really enjoying it. It means once we've started, we kind of know each other, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, bro. You want to kind of, in an ideal world, know that the people that you're going to be working with that closely, you're going to enjoy that relationship, and it's going to be hopefully mutually beneficial and fill your cup rather than,
and know that they care for us. Because I think people, we're an agency and we do digital marketing as well as content. Sometimes people think that you can just like talk, I don't know, treat agencies like shit. People are like, I'm paying them, so if I can make them work, But we're like people too, man. And we've got souls, and if we're on the creative side, you're sensitive, and it can be really hard. And so I want to make sure that, these people know that I've got a soul, I've got a child, and I've got, and I'm doing a good job, So that's great, and I think that's a precedent I'm trying to set now. Before we go in with people, is like, this is a mutually beneficial agreement. We're not your agency, we're actually a team. And I know heaps of shit, and you know heaps of shit, so let's come together and grow the heck out of this thing. So bro, next 5 years, what do you want to do? Where's
What does that look like?
Yeah.
Man, be year 13 after 5.
Yo, okay, year 10.
At year 10?
Yeah.
I really want to, grow our direct business in some key sort of international territories and just keep pursuing that. Places much bigger than here, and then maybe work towards like a real flag in the sand international presence, whether that's retail or pop-ups or whatever that might kind of look like. We've seen over the years lots and lots of markers of success in that way, but I think there's a lot more that we can definitely do. And right now I'm very focused on our kind of product assortment and having this really strong range that has those good drivers, has the nice fun pointy stuff as well, and it's just really well structured to kind of achieve all those needs. So like I was kind of talking about before, kind of quite focused under the hood. And then to be well set up for hopefully growth expansion opportunities. But I really, I started this business when I was 26, I think.
So was I.
Yeah, right. And I was so career focused through my 20s. Had this long-term relationship, had a job for 6 years, started checks. It's been 8 years. And I was just so career focused, real head down, very sort of disciplined and focused and living, I don't know, I wasn't like a party boy either. And I feel like I kind of missed that opportunity where I could have, I don't know, done an OE or, had dreams when I was 16 or younger probably of living in New York. I was obsessed with American culture and like New York specifically. Been lucky to travel heaps, so I've been to lots of those places and that's awesome. But I love being based here and I love my lifestyle. I love my friendships, and relationships and things. And, I don't know, just how chill it is in New Zealand. But I am craving a bit more of like an international lifestyle, just to be able to have a bit of a best of both worlds, So, I want that for the business as well. So for those things, those goals kind of feed together.
Bro, it's crazy, something we share because it's cool to start a business young. By all means, it's epic, and if you're hungry for it, it's so cool. But now we hit 30 and you realise, I haven't lived overseas, and which is a gateway thing for Kiwis, right? I haven't grown my perspective. Like, yes, I've travelled a bit, but I haven't lived somewhere to really like sink in and grow that perspective and things like that. So I hit 30 and I'm like, I need to get out for a bit, So I think it's a way up for like anyone going into business young or wanting to start a business young. Just know you'll lose your 20s. Which is cool.
It's a tough way to put it, but not wrong.
Yeah, I think if I was to do it again, I wouldn't start a business until I was at 30.
Yeah.
Or late 20s.
If I was giving someone advice,
sorry.
Probably.
If I'm giving you advice. But you can't get your mid-20s back. But then again, you're not old at 30, so... No. But you can't get a visa to places like France or something. That breaks my heart. Like, you can't get working visas at some places.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'll write in.
The thing that I say, despite that experience, and I love my life right now.
Well, that's
in the past. I don't want to necessarily use this as a demarcation point, but the past year, having a great time.
Oh, it looks like it. You're radiating.
Thank you, bro. It's a nice way to feel, and that's obviously presented through business and through work, I think.
But your mental well-being.
Feeling good.
You're driving a good truck up there.
Exactly. And that's at 34, 33 into 34. And so I guess, why would you give anything back if that's all led to now?
How mad would it be if you could live in New York and design checks and run checks and just slowly build that New York checks? Everything leaked, all still running here. I can see you doing that, bro. I reckon, you get to have some late night calls and shit like that.
Totally.
But I feel like you can't, like you said, you kind of got to be there, eh?
I like that. Maybe it's coming from a perspective of being so firmly based here and how could I sort of change that? But I like that idea of being maybe between two time zones or countries, like bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, no, I'm hungry for it too. I'll be honest. Like us starting the online thing is like, okay, if that's driving enough revenue and we don't really need to have too many retained clients or content jobs. So some months I wanted to go and do 3 months somewhere.
So you're going to India or something, bro?
Yeah, Bali.
Bali? India of Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, India, yeah. I mean, Sri Lanka, yeah.
It's sick there.
I just want to go surf. I need to live next to the beach.
Right.
I think being, Auckland's not landlocked, but there's no surfing for an hour each way. So I know I need that in me. Also, I don't feel like I've topped that level in my life. I want to surf, barrels, bruh. But I've never pursued that, but I've got friends who just devoted their 20s to that. I'm like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
And then you have kids and stuff later. But I've kind of done the old, had dessert first and worked my dinner backwards. And so, I just want to do that and see how far I can push it and have some stories. Yeah, surf this swell, when you're an old man. But, Anyway, bro, thanks for coming in.
Is that a wrap?
Yeah.
Appreciate it, bro.
Fucking awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
really
that was really cool. And, proud of you, bro.
Thank you,
I know we've only just met, but I want to be honest. You just seemed who you were, and it was really cool. You weren't trying to prove anything or anything like that. And I'm sort of, I don't know. I get scared away from people like that. But I just want to say you are very authentic, and it's cool to share business shit with someone who's around my age as well. So appreciate it, bro.
Oh, thank you so much, man. It's been it's fun.
You want to turn off on that one?